Wait, you have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV. Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Hey everybody, welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reed, your TV Guidance Counselor, still here each and every week speaking into the abyss about classic television using back issues of TV Guide magazine from my personal collection as the gateway into our collective past. Thank you guys so much for continuing to listen as we sort of wind down summer, or yeah, I guess we are winding down summer. I still feel like it's March when everything kind of stopped, but I don't know if you do as well. I realized the other day that I have only worn one pair of socks for about a month. Not every day, I just haven't worn socks because I've been wearing pajamas pretty much every day, and not in like a fun Hugh Hefner way. Although it's possible Hugh Hefner did not have fun and he was in fact a prisoner of his own design. But that's a whole psychological exploration of Hugh Hefner that I did not intend to get into this week. What I did tend to get into this week was a conversation with my guest, Kaitlin Huwe. Kaitlin is the writing partner and performance partner of Stephanie Erb, who was on the show a few months back, and they do a web series called Therapy with Pammy. So Stephanie said, you got to have Kaitlin on. She's great. And I said, you're right. Let's do it. And so I did. And we had an excellent discussion about all things 2004. I think you guys will enjoy it very much. Again, continuing to ask the people you've requested to have on the show to be on the show, and some of them said yes. Some of them have told me that I should go F myself, but no one's actually said that, but just wanted to put that out there. Anyway, it's time. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Kaitlin Huwe.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Kaitlin Huwe, how are you?
Hi, Ken. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. It's very, very hot here.
Where are you?
I am in the Boston area, the greater Boston area.
The greater Boston area.
And it is almost 100 degrees and incredibly humid. So
and you're recording audio, so you can't have your air conditioning on.
That is correct. But, you know, that's the price we pay in order to enjoy the beautiful 2 weeks of autumn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Will it start to cool off soon and get crisper?
No,
we're just gonna bake for another few months.
Yeah, it's sort of. I remember my wife is from England, and when she first moved here, we had one of the worst winters we'd ever had. It was just like the apocalypse of snow, and then it was one of the hottest summers after that. And she was like, "Why do you live here?"
Exactly. I feel I'm very spoiled because I've lived in California my whole life, and
yes.
It is just really a beautiful, beautiful land. And it's funny, my dad is from the Midwest, from Minnesota, and we'll go back there in the summer sometimes, and there's like the mosquitoes and the humidity. And I was like, oh, this is a very different experience. And I've never been to Boston, but one of my really good friends is from there. So I imagine I'll go someday.
You should visit if the world doesn't end and you are able to leave the house at some point. It is wonderful in the autumn. If you're a fan of Halloween and autumnal activities, if you want to go apple picking and, you know, go to Salem and that stuff, it's great.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's a bit much, but you know, that's the lot in life and where we're stuck sometimes.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I would definitely come for all the autumnal things. I'm born in November. I identify as a witch. So I'm like ready to be there. That sounds awesome.
You gotta go to Salem then. Salem is pretty cool, even though it's sort of built on very ghoulish origins. But were you in Northern California growing up? Or?
Yeah, in the Bay Area. So I grew up in Mountain View, just south of San Francisco, which is like Google Town now. It's so different. I was just actually walking on the beach this morning with a girlfriend and telling her about how much the Silicon Valley area has changed since I left. I moved to LA when I was 17. And so I feel like I really grew up as like an adult here in LA, but yeah, that part of the Bay Area, the South Bay Area, is just so gorgeous because it never snows, but you do get fall colors and there's a real crispness and frost on the lawn, but no snow, just frost. My mom would wake up and be like, look, Jack Frost came.
We don't have to shovel it. It's wonderful.
I know. And there's orchards, and I grew up on Ohlone land, and reading about the Ohlone Indians that lived there, they described that the hillsides were like moving and alive because there was so much wildlife there. Wow. That it was like just rabbits and deer and everything. And obviously it's changed a lot now, but it's a very fertile and beautiful place to grow things. And
I know a ton of Boston people who've relocated to the San Francisco Bay Area, and I have friends that live in Alameda who are from here.
Yeah.
And that Alameda is like somebody loved New England but redesigned it to be good. They're like, we love just the Victorian houses
with a little bit of West Coast energy. You know?
Like that little idyllic 50s town, but like still, just a little West Coast energy.
Yeah,
everything's nice. People are in a good mood. It's that kind of thing where I'm like, oh yeah, I could see this. This is like you went, oh, this is version 2.0 of where I grew up.
Just a little West Coast version. Yeah, it took me a while to realize that the West Coast is a real vibe, and going somewhere else, I was like, oh, I'm really from somewhere. There's a lot of like positivity and just this warmth in people that you find out here that I really love. And it kind of startles me when I go somewhere like New York or on the East Coast, and I'm kind of like, hey guys, what's up?
The joke I always make about Boston is you would think there's not enough shoulders for all the chips here, but people are willing to take on multiples. And the sort of first time I ever went to LA, I remember saying to a friend of mine, I was like, these people, they have no defenses. We could just conquer them. Like,
just everybody like, yeah, bro, come on over. That's hella cool.
They let you in traffic, and they're happy to see it. It's just so weird.
Maybe not in LA. I mean, actually, it's funny with the pandemic, since there's just it's such a bizarre time to be in LA, but the roads are still very open. This is the first time in LA that I've never experienced a tourist season. I always thought that it was like, this is just how LA is, but I didn't realize that half the people that are here in the summer are tourists, and we don't have tourists this summer. And so just being on the beach today, I was like, whoa, I feel like this is a small town all of a sudden. It's just really, really cool. I never thought I would have been able to experience that. And honestly, driving through Beverly Hills is the absolute worst. People will cut you off in their crazy cars and whatever. But lately, I mean, you get a couple people that are just so stoked that the roads are open that they're speeding around and being like, look, I don't have to drive 5 miles an hour on Santa Monica Boulevard in traffic. So they're excited to speed. But I have noticed since the pandemic, a lot of people are like letting you in and like, oh, you go first, and just more spatial awareness in general because of the 6 feet rule, which is really nice. People are looking up from their phones a little more.
And people aren't in a rush to get anywhere, I imagine, too. They're just like, hey, I'm out of the house and I'm going to milk it for every second that I can. So it's fine if it takes longer.
Yeah. In the early days, I had a girlfriend and her boyfriend just kind of come over. I have a little garden, and I was like, I have some extra rosemary. Do you want some rosemary? And so she comes over with her boyfriend, and they're sitting out on my porch, and we're talking through the window. And I'm like, what are you guys doing out of the house? They're like, we just went for a drive. I was like, oh, this is a very different life than us all being like, I can't go. I can't drive there. I can't go to the east side right now.
It's going to take
away.
forever. Yeah, I mean, I filled my gas tank in March right before I left for LA, because I was in LA most of March, and I have not refilled my gas tank yet. I'm saving money on gas. It's very exciting. And even if you had to buy it, it's a lot less expensive now, which is really nice. I'm certainly making up for that money savings in comfort purchasing things and eating everything in sight that will be delivered to my home now.
Seriously. I mean, it was kind of weird, my reaction to and obviously we've been through so much, and now with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything, but the first few weeks of the pandemic, my brain was just really not working properly, and like going to the the grocery store and seeing like nothing on the shelves was just really activated this very strange survival sort of energy. And but it manifested in a very bizarre way that I went online and bought 3 throw blankets. Like, just like, what are you doing? Like, is
it's
this
pure
really
comfort though.
Just pure comfort. And now it's like, okay, and my money's going to bail funds, and my money is going to Black Lives Matter, and we're buying voting merch from Vote Save America. So,
but it's almost like a survivor's guilt that I have for having, like, being still employed because I work from home anyway. Yeah. And, you know, having a little bit. So it's, you know, I kind of feel obligated to do those sorts of things, but
absolutely,
it's where we're at. And so you moved to LA when you were 17. Did you specifically move to pursue acting?
Yeah. So I decided in high school, I had a really amazing drama teacher named Ron Heising. And I honestly didn't think, even though I had grown up doing musical theater and then kind of transitioning more into straight plays, which is such a funny word for just normal plays without music.
Although weirdly appropriate.
Totally. And it's funny, now I'm finding a whole hybrid of plays with music in them, but they're not musicals. So it's just funny, the full circle effect. But I had a really amazing drama teacher in high school that was like, you can do this. Go for it, and help me prep to apply to performing arts colleges. And it was funny too how it all manifested, because I'd always grown up doing theater and loving it and loving the community and loving the expression. And I mean, I was singing before I could talk. I was kind of one of those kids, like we'd go on a hike in the woods and I'd get up on a tree stump and like do a show for everyone. And I was kind of like that.
But, are you an only child or sibling?
No, I'm the middle, but the only girl.
Okay.
So I had like my own special moment. You know, I didn't have that traditional middle child experience where people feel like lost in the shuffle just because I was the only girl, you know. So there was like I got some special points there, and definitely a ham. And but yeah, so my high school drama teacher took us to a drama competition up in Northern California, and it was called the Motherlode Drama Festival. And I did this fun little scene with another actress about 2 like Elvis fans sitting outside of Graceland, and we ended up winning first place. And that was like the first time where I was like, oh, well, maybe this isn't just like a hobby, you know? And then he started grooming me to do my monologues and get all my material together to apply for performing arts colleges. And so it kind of came down to NYU and USC and UCLA, and I could only afford UCLA, but actually it was the right fit for me, because I wanted a broad liberal arts education along with the conservatory style training. And honestly, the kids I met at UCLA, the other people in my program, all of them so incredibly wildly talented. I still can't believe I like got in there. I'm just like, how did I get into this club? Wow. Because everybody's just so unique, and there were only like 60 of us in each grade, which NYU has like 300 or something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, New York, it is.
It's a factory.
Yeah, if you want to feel anonymous, New York is a great place to be.
Really love New York. I hope I get to spend some time there, and I'm sending them a lot of love right now coming through this pandemic, because it's such a cool place. And but I don't think I could ever live there long term. But
no, the beauty of time. The beauty of New York is kind of lost on me, and not because I'm from Boston and there's that like weird one-sided rivalry, but it's like, to me, whenever I go to New York, I'm like, wow, this is everything bad about Boston, but additional bad things.
Oh my gosh.
Because, and I would do shows down there a lot, but I would always drive down and drive back, and I'm like, it's only 4 hours. It's fine.
Wow.
But, California to me was and is so much more exotic and different. And I'm like, oh, this is great. But had you ever been to LA before you went to school there? Or was it like because people forget California is real big.
I had never been to LA before I came to visit UCLA, really. I think we came down here to see The Lion King once on like a little family trip, and we had been to Disneyland. But the only thing I knew about LA was I watched The Hills and I watched MTV. And that was kind of my reference point for LA was reality TV, VH1, MTV. And so, yeah, I got this book of like the best performing arts colleges in the country. And that was one of them. And it made sense because I wanted to work in film and television and theater. And it seemed like, oh, LA is the choice. And so I came down here to do my audition. No, I actually had a guy from my high school that came here and got into the program, and I heard about it through him. And then I did my UCLA audition in San Francisco in this like gorgeous building looking over the whole bay. I like could barely focus on my Shakespeare. I was like, wait, can I just look out the window? And then I think we came down for an interview or they hosted some sort of a like, you've been accepted, so come and listen to our spiel. And I remember standing at the top of Jan's Steps, which is this like gorgeous giant staircase in the middle of the quad, and the brick and these gorgeous red buildings and the green grass, and the marching band was playing, and I was like, okay. My high school had a really good marching band, and I lived close enough to my high school that I heard the marching band first thing every morning. Like that's what woke me up in the morning. And so it was this sort of like, oh yeah, this is your next step. This is where you'll be. And it was intense. I mean, UCLA is definitely a little bubble in Los Angeles. You really are isolated kind of in that little pocket, which is nice. You have Westwood, you kind of have, you know, Trader Joe's, a farmer or a little farmer's market a couple times a week, and little shops and clothing stores. Like everything you need is right there, which is really nice. But then you start going off that campus and it is a wild world. So
yes,
yeah.
Very different. If you end up downtown, I imagine there's a lot of people who spent their freshman and sophomore years entirely on campus and end up downtown at some point and are, you know, it's like adventures in babysitting all of a sudden.
Oh my gosh. And I got a car down here. Luckily, my family helped me get a car my junior year of college. And then I started doing plays off campus with some UCLA people. My friend Carly Wexstein, who started a theater company. And so I was driving to Silver Lake from Westwood like 6 nights a week to go and do Shakespeare, like in my junior year. Me and like 5 other girls from my program all piled into one car, and we'd sit on Sunset Boulevard for like an hour to get out there and an hour to get back. And so it was kind of nice. There were these little spokes of UCLA community that would then start initiatives or start shows or programs or workshops or classes off campus. One of my mentors, Monica Payne, who I worked with a lot in my undergrad, started teaching these viewpoints in Meisner fusion workshops downtown and over, like even farther than downtown, which I don't even know what that's called, but there's like a train over there, and it was like on the other side of the train tracks, literally in these giant movement spaces and warehouses. Like I believe it's like the arts district of downtown, but it was even further than that.
Oh yeah,
it's just way
like past Little Tokyo,
past the like, river,
yep.
the very sad LA River.
Well, I mean, it's really cool in Terminator 2 when they have that great car chase scene.
Oh, I have not seen that.
You never saw Terminator 2.
This is why I'm concerned about our conversation, is because there are so many classics that I just haven't seen. And I even put some of them on my, like Scarface. Like I've never seen Scarface, you know? And so there's just like certain... You don't think Scarface is a classic? Was that your...
I mean, yeah, you could pick up on that just by my
the pitch.
No, I mean, Scarface is not one that I would be like, oh, how dare you, never seen it. But I recognize that I have a different view of Scarface than some people.
Yeah, and I don't even know much about it, but I just like saw it and I was like, oh yeah, I feel like that's something people talk about. I should see that, you know? But mostly what's on my list is like That's So Raven and Sister.
But I mean, that's what you would have watched, it sounds
this
like.
was
I mean,
really fun, honestly, to go down memory lane and like look at all these shows that were out in 2004.
Let's dive in.
Okay.
We have April 23rd to May 1st, 2004. So you're significantly younger than me.
Yeah. And this is another reason why I'm embarrassed about our conversation is that this is the first time I've ever read a TV guide.
But that makes perfect sense because you're of that generation where you probably had the on-screen guide of when you could watch stuff.
So I don't even
you wouldn't
know
need
what
this.
that life is like, where you get this piece of paper that tells you what's on TV. And I mean, I do remember as a kid, I loved watching Arthur, and it was on at like 3 or 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, I think, on PBS. And one day I stayed out too late playing with my friend. I wasn't aware of the time, and I missed Arthur, and I was like so sad. So I think I have one experience like that, but not that many.
Oh, it was devastating as a kid. Like, we'd have to plan our whole week. Like, I'd have a notebook with a piece of paper, and it was, that was where it was at. But I am envious of your experience of not having to do that.
And now I only know what's on TV based on the billboards in LA. Like, I drive around.
Which, thankfully, there are a lot of.
There are a ton of billboards, and it's weird because living here for about 10 years now, I'm just like, oh wow, I don't realize that other places don't have billboards that tell them what's on TV. Like, I don't know, it's just that's my TV guide now, is billboards.
Well, also, you don't need to know like channel or time because you just see the billboard and you get your phone out and you're now watching the blacklist in your car.
Like seriously, while my car drives itself.
Yes, exactly.
I'm
like
not
it's
there yet, but we'll be there.
We live in the future, though. We'll get there. You'll be living Terminator 2.
So I haven't seen Terminator 2, but I would like to see the LA River in that movie. I would be curious.
There's a huge chase scene. There's a ton of movies that feature the LA River. What maybe my favorite LA movie of all time is Repo Man, which I would not have expected you to see.
I have heard of it. I haven't seen it. I think I've seen clips of it for sure.
Weird movie, Emilio Estevez, 1984 LA punk movie. But again, there are chase scenes downtown in the LA River and that sort of area. And it's when I first went to LA, I stayed downtown specifically because sort of all the movies and TV that I loved were all sort of shot down there.
Wait, did you live in LA for a time or just come and visit or?
I'm out. I was before the current times, but I'd be out like 3 or 4 months a year usually, on and off for pitching shows and doing this and doing stand up and stuff.
Awesome.
So, I wish it's a place I wished I had moved when I was 17 because it's like everything I love in the world out there, and everyone's nice and the food is good and it feels so comfortable and familiar because it literally is everything I watched growing up. So, a place having never been there, and that's a very strange phenomenon.
Yeah, but then I don't know. For me, it's funny because like there's this shine of it on TV and in movies. And then when you live here, you see a little bit more of like the dirt and the grit and
sure.
The facade of it. Like I remember going to a very small indie movie I was in at this like film festival, and I'm like, oh wow, this is gonna be at the Staples, like near the Staples Center, like what? And I was like, wow, this is a big deal, and there's a red carpet, and like whoa. And so I get all ready and I go down there, and it's just a bunch of people with iPhones like pretending it's a thing. And I'm just like, oh, this is the dark underbelly of Hollywood.
We're LARPing Hollywood,
where everybody is like taking photos on their iPhone and like pretending that it's really a big deal, and it's just not a big deal. But it's beautiful in a very sweet and earnest, like trying to come up kind of way that I love. But there's also some dark corners where you're like, what am I doing in the Chinese theater right now?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. And part of that I've noticed too seems somewhat generational in that in like the last 10 years, and I'm not saying that the movie you just referenced was this situation, but a lot of people I've noticed are making movies, and the movie seems to be an afterthought for them being able to promote the movie.
Like, seriously.
Or just to have something to talk about on social media, they're making a movie, but it's more just like a fuel to do that stuff. So it's more about the premiere and filming it on the iPhone and, doing an interview than the actual film itself.
Oh, it's like very meta. It's very strange. And Oh yeah, it really is funny to me, and I don't know what to make of it. I'm just like, oh wow, we're all just gonna pretend, you know. And I guess there's this thing of like the film festivals, because I actually had an opportunity to go to Sundance like right before this whole thing closed down, and when I was there, I was like, oh, this is a film festival.
Right.
Like,
this is what they are.
Is what it is, and I'm glad that I had all those experiences in those little makeshift theaters, like kind of building up my strength to go to Sundance. But it seems like there's a lot of film festivals that aren't really like film festivals. Like they're just kind of, I don't know, like it's where you would go to sell your movie, but it's just a bunch of people there like taking selfies and trying to promote themselves. It was just, so it's interesting.
I've noticed that even in like stand-up or any of the comedy worlds or music and that stuff now. I think part of it is, for better or worse, it's so much easier to create content now without having a gatekeeper, like you've done with the therapy with Pammy show. You can do that. Like you can just make a show and distribute it yourself, or make a movie and distribute it yourself, and that's great in a lot of ways because it frees up creative people who have talent and don't need someone else to greenlight it. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who the old system would have filtered out, in that they really shouldn't be making something, or aren't, or if they should be, not quite yet.
Yeah. Well, I'm all for growing up in public. Like I've been making stuff, like whether it's music videos or music or Therapy with Pammy was definitely my first sort of theatrical comedy thing that I produced. And it was a big step for me because I was like, okay, I've done some music videos and I'm learning filmmaking by making music videos. And now I want to do something that has sound. So that was like why we did Therapy with Pammy, was I was like, okay, can I produce something that has live sound and simple sort of camera setup that's doable, shoot a bunch of little episodes in one day, practice my improv, like get ready for my Christopher Guest movie, prep some fun, weird, wild characters, get in that energy of improv and making it happen. And can I add like one more tiny production element? Because eventually, I'd love to make a longer series that actually has interesting, our cinematographers did an amazing job, and we wanted it to be like a inside the actor's studio kind of a setup. Right. So they nailed it, and they went above and beyond for what we were even thinking. We just thought it would be a couple iPhones on some tripods, and our amazing cinematographer, Christine Orn, she like brought in all these matching cameras and just nailed it with movement and a dolly and just really cool stuff. I was like, whoa, great. Glad we're up leveling this production beyond what I could have imagined. Right. So, the goal is, every time I produce something or make something, grow a little bit or try something new and challenge myself a little bit more. Not too much so that I shut down, but just a little, push that growing edge.
Yeah, I mean, because you can. And being out there, having that level of talent or people who could up the game of this thing that you had sort of smaller ambitions for is another one of the reasons it is great being in LA, because you have people who you can learn that sort of stuff from, or who can just turn the dial up on the thing you're doing a little bit more. But bottom line is, you still had a good idea with good content, which some people will overlook.
I have a lot of training. Like I went to UCLA. I did a 4-year BA in acting. I went to the Groundlings. I did their whole improv program. Then I went back to a Meisner school and I did 2 years of Meisner training. And then I was like, okay, you can act well enough. Like, you're never going to be there, but, you need to go to the next level. And I'm working a little bit in TV, but not as much as I would like. And, whenever I do get onto a big set, I'm just like, whoa, this is a lot. And this is like, I want to know how all these different things work, but I don't necessarily need to know the minutia of sound, the minutia of lighting, the minutia of operating a camera. I can just hire a professional. And I found, producing my own stuff, there, if you have a little budget and a deadline, you can get stuff done. And because people want to work, you know, and everybody we had on they work all the time. And, you know, doing things on a lower budget, you know, you might lose somebody at the last minute due to a project with a higher budget, and that just kind of comes in the code. But people just wanted to work and make something and hang out. And so that's definitely why I love being in LA. There's just so many creative people here that are down to show up and do the work. There's also a lot of creative people that like to sit around and complain and just go to the gym. Oh, yes. But I feel very, very lucky that I found the people are like, let's show up and do the thing, which is so exciting.
People are used to the hustle, which is kind of great. And one of the examples I always point to is, you know, in the heyday of made for TV movies. So that was probably like the mid 70s to the mid to late 80s. A lot of the people they hired to make those were people who made horror and exploitation movies. So people like Wes Craven and John Carpenter. And the reason was those people knew how to shoot a movie for little money in a short amount of time and get what they needed done. Yeah. And so it was like, oh, they can do this. So, you know, major networks are going to hire them to make a movie of the week. So it's a skill that is valued to this day for a lot of reasons. And before we get into the actual content of the days here, one of the things I noticed in this issue that really interested me was there's an article about watching TV on your phone.
Really? Wait, I missed that.
Yeah, it's on page 13, and it is it's right next to a giant ad of Milano cookies, which look delicious right now. Oh my God. But it's literally flip phone circa 2004.
You're right, color TV.
And it's talking about like what they think the future of this will be. And it seems totally crazy that we'd be watching these sorts of things on TV, you know, TV on our phone. And it's just so fascinating to go back and see like what they were right about and what they were wrong about.
Whoa.
Because they kind of get it pretty right, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, like music fans can check out videos on lesser known California music channel and the Independent Music Network. So you can have your niche music on here. Other networks, basically fillers of the college sports television variety. Wow.
Yeah. This is pre-YouTube, so it's not even, there wasn't even a means for regular people to upload these things. So it was like niche websites and, you know, sort of thrown away asides of clips on MSNBC's site or Discovery Channel. And it's just amazing how this would become the major vehicle in a lot of ways for the way that TV is made and distributed.
Yeah, I mean, I watch a ton of stuff on my phone, or I pull it up on my phone and then throw it on the TV or cast it. You know, it's amazing. Yeah. I thought that
it's insane we can even do that.
Oh, yeah. I thought that this article about Tina Fey was really interesting. Where, let me see if I can find it. Oh, yeah. Tina Fey and the Women of SNL are the new queens of late night comedy. And then there's a pull quote from Maya Rudolph. Tina is not a typical female writer, says Maya Rudolph, of the show's chief scribe. We think of her as a dude. I'm just like, what is happening? But I know what this era was. It was like, put on the pants, pretend you're a guy, get in the room. Like, it's just funny.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially SNL. I mean, famously, Bonnie Hunt, who's one of my personal heroes, she turned down SNL 6 times because they wouldn't hire a woman as a writer-performer. You were hired as a writer or a performer. And even Tina Fey, she was originally a writer and then made her way, after years of working there, into the performer bucket.
It's crazy that this is just 2004, you know?
Right.
And look where we are in 2020, and I wonder where we'll be in another 20. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's insane where this doesn't feel like that long ago to me. But when I look at how different some things were, and some things are exactly the same, but when I look back at how different some things were, it is somewhat shocking. This is also, the big thing in this issue is Extreme Home Makeover. They're really pushing.
Which I am totally here for. And you picked the right girl for this episode because all I've been doing in the pandemic is like fixing my house. Like I'm just painting every wall there is to paint. We're actually converting my garage into a little recording studio and performance space. Nice. And I've just been going deep into that, treating the space with
for, the optimal audio. It's not ready yet, but I've just thrown myself into gardening and painting and refurbishing, and it's been very good to just do things with my hands and see.
Do you watch that stuff though? Do you watch those?
We watched, I can't remember what it was called. We just watched something on Netflix. It was this interior design challenge. I am getting more and more interested in interior design. There's a couple on Netflix. I can't remember which one it was called. And I actually got some really good ideas for my studio. I'm calling it the Barn. I got some good ideas for it of just seeing different ways to do things, or inspiration, different ways to do lighting. So yeah, I like that. I didn't watch a ton of HGTV growing up. This has kind of been an interest that's come in later in life as like my home space sanctuary has become very important. I'm like, I want everything to be, like I mentioned, the 3 throw blankets, like everything has to be cozy and beautiful and plush and just like cozy and warm and comforting.
Well, as a kid, you don't have a ton of control over that too. So it would almost be sort of frustrating or boring, because even if you saw something on that show you liked, now you have an additional hurdle of trying to convince your parents to do that.
Well, actually, cool thing was that we remodeled our house when I was in probably around the time this TV guide came out, actually. That's so interesting. We were doing a huge remodel on my parents' home, and it was funny because my mom has a very different style than me. She likes stone and distressed wood, and everything is tan and brown and black, and I am like, there's blue and orange. And so I got to watch my parents, like, from the blueprint, like, tear apart our house and redo it, and it is like gorgeous. But she decorated it in a way that is beautiful. It's like Spanish Mediterranean style. It wouldn't be the way I would do my house, I don't think. I remember she got this like very expensive table from Restoration Hardware or something. And she'd been talking about the new table we're going to get. Oh, no, it's from Ethan Allen. We're getting this table from Ethan Allen. And it comes, and there's, like, bullet holes in this table. And, like, it's so distressed. I was like, Mom, why did you get a table that's been through the war? Is what I asked her. But she did let me design my own bedroom at the end of it. And I got to pick out all the stuff from Pottery Barn Teen. And it's like somebody ate a bag of red and orange and yellow Skittles and then threw up all over that room, because it is just it's pink and orange and yellow, and it is like so pink, like pink fuzzy beanbag chair, pink duvet, pink curtains, pink glittery curtain holders, like just the whole thing. So I did have one, and I think my whole vision now of my home now is I'm trying to rectify that very pink, legally blonde
balance must be set.
Room.
Yes, we must set balance right in the world for this pink room that was done. Yeah, I mean it is kind of empowering as a kid to be able to have that level of control over your own space.
Yeah, that was
that's
really
sort of the first thing
that she let me do that. That was both my parents. Yeah.
So did you on the Sunday night? Did you pick Extreme Home Makeover?
I actually didn't. I didn't. I kind of had this whole like nostalgia moment. And I said that I would start it off with That's So Raven. I freaking loved that show, and I would love to watch that show again. Like, if I saw it on, I mean, we don't even have cable, but if I saw it on, I would watch it for old time's sake. I just loved that she got visions, and then it was like this very Greek sort of prophetic storyline where she would get a vision, like a prophecy, and then think that, you know, she had to do something to make sure that didn't happen. And then she would do all this stuff to make sure it didn't happen. And then it would happen, but it was like a completely different thing. It wasn't what she thought it was going to be. And everybody was safe and fine. And I just loved that. And I also loved Seventh Heaven. And was like a diehard. Like, that was one thing I watched every day. So I would watch those for nostalgia. Then I found Brave New Girl, where there's a full page ad in this TV guide
which is Britney and Lynn Spears.
Yes.
Is that Jamie
Yes.
Lynn? Like before she was
I believe
Jamie
it
Lynn?
is. Yeah, because she was on, I think it was on Fabulous, I want to say was the show she was on as Jamie Lynn. So this was, if I'm remembering correctly, this was Britney kind of trying to throw her younger sister a bone and sort of present her to the world. And it was before she became Jamie Lynn.
Brave New Girl. Yeah.
Yeah, this is an interesting time because this is when all the networks sort of discovered that you were the target audience, that sort of tween girls were just a gold mine. And you started getting shows specifically really pushed and broadcast towards that demographic, which we really didn't have before that.
Wait, this is not even Britney and Jamie Lynn in the movie. It says from executive producers, Britney and Lynn Spears.
Yeah.
And it's Lindsay Hahn and Virginia Madsen, A Daughter's Dream, A Mother's Gift. I would watch that.
I watch Virginia Madsen in most stuff.
Also because I am a musician and I love like movies with music. It's just the best. And if it's like a small town dream girl trying to make it big, like I'm all here for it.
So like Raise Your Voice. Is that the one with Hilary Duff?
Oh my God, yes. Raise Your Voice. I'm sad that the Olsen twins never got into music. I think that they really missed an opportunity there.
I have to imagine, and I don't want to disparage the Olsen twins, or, they can't touch me. But I have to imagine the reason they didn't is they must have been so terrible at singing, because I am sure that if some network could have made a dime off of them doing music, that they would have pushed it. Absolutely.
They are just so cute and so talented. I loved all their movies. It was truly just a gift. So yeah, I love the Hilary Duff, Raise Your Voice. I'm trying to think of things from that era. Like, I don't know, Cheetah Girls was kind of in there.
Oh, that's right.
I think that was
you were post
I don't know. I was post what?
S Club 7 had already happened.
Wait,
I think.
Okay, my mom didn't let me watch S Club 7 because she thought it was too racy. She didn't like the outfits the girls wore. She thought it was too provocative.
It did take place like in a beach resort kind of place.
Yeah, they were always
naked,
and I mean, they weren't naked, but they were like wearing halter tops, which was like sinful.
Yeah, there was a lot of belly on show.
Oh,
on
the belly button and the belly button piercings.
Yeah. What's your favorite musical movie or movie that includes music as like a plot?
Oh my God. Okay, well, I love the Dewey Cox story, Walk Hard.
Okay.
So I love like music comedy movies. Like that's a really, really good one for me. In fact, someday I would love to make the female version of like a girl band, like Through the Ages. Don't let anybody steal that idea. I'd love to do that. I also loved Walk the Line. Like, I don't know. I like maybe sort of like more historical, but also real, like, and good music.
Right. So you like Johnny Cash is basically what we've discovered here.
Oh, yeah, because they're both based on Johnny Cash. Yeah, I grew up listening to country music, so that was definitely a huge inspiration. I'm trying to think of, like, other music movies.
You know what? I loved the movie Band Slam.
I've never seen that.
It was like 2008 maybe, and I think it's like Vanessa, one of those girls that was on a Disney show, and I can't think of her name now.
Oh, Vanessa Hudgens? No.
Maybe, yeah. No, not
like,
Vanessa Hudgens.
She was like in High School Musical?
Yeah, and it's like about a high school battle of the bands, and now I have to look it up because I'm removing my own no looking up rule. It's from 2009. Yeah, Vanessa Hudgens is in it. That's who it is. And I went into it being like, I have an affinity for sort of teen movies in that genre, and this was definitely way too young for me, but I loved it. And like David Bowie is in it. Like it's actually a really good movie.
Okay, I'm going to check that out.
David Bowie's actually in it,
That's
which is kind of insane.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but it's a fun little like teen movie.
Well, it's so funny because also to round out my Sunday evening, like Sunday prime time, I picked Grease. So I don't know.
Okay.
There's definitely like a theme here with these like musical movies.
Do you have a favorite TV theme song?
Well,
It's tough because
so
you're of the
funny.
generation where they were gone.
This is something so ridiculous about me is my boyfriend and I just finished watching Succession on HBO like a couple months ago. And the intro to that show is like a very intense, like epic orchestral sort of like hip hop beat. And every day we watch every episode that we watch, and there's also like this montage of like families at country clubs with little kids like sitting alone playing with a tennis ball, like away from their father who's on the phone making a business deal. Like it's all just very dramatic, and I would rap over it every time we watched the intro to the show, and it was really fun. And sometimes I would just call out what I was seeing in the montage, and then sometimes I would go on riffs about it, and I think that's my recent favorite. But also,
I mean, that's good.
yeah, it's pretty fun. And then but I haven't found another show to rap to yet, but we were just watching something and there had like a good beat, and my boyfriend was like, "Are you going to rap to this one too?" I was like, "Oh, maybe." So it's sort of become a thing in our house. But I also
It's a very niche skill set.
Yeah, it is. You know, I try to keep my freestyle mind open. You know, because it's definitely I mean, it's a little bit. I don't do stand up, even though it would be fun. Just I'm terrified of it, but I think
I would not recommend it.
Don't do it. Well, because you do stand up, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
so-
I always enjoy the actual stand up,
Moment of it.
but everything else about it is the worst.
Yeah, and I honestly, I listened to your episode with Stephanie, like talking about it, and I don't do well in those dark places. I don't do well around in that sort of energy. Like late night kind of isn't my thing. Like I don't really thrive after 10 p.m. I would say, which I think is why I'm more of like a theater actress. Like curtain goes down at 10, and then you get to go home and sleep.
Right. There's no stand-up matinees.
Oh, yeah. That's too bad, though.
Weirdly, having done stand-up in the day a couple times, and like I did a short tour with Bob Saget, and we did these big outdoor sheds, like, you know, outdoor theater in the round type places. And it was in the summer, so, you know, the show started at like 6:00, and so it was light outside, and it just doesn't work. Like something about it is
you're just a little
is
too
wrong.
naked up there. It's just like it's already so.
Yeah. The vibe's just wrong or something. It's just like, ugh, I don't know.
You know what's so funny about Bob Saget is that the guys I was friends with in high school used his name like in place of the phrase of like, "Oh darn it." They'd be like, "Bob Saget."
That works.
I
He'd
just
probably
think
appreciate that.
I don't know. I just thought that was so funny. I don't know where that came from or if that's a thing across the country or just with that group of guys I hung out with. But that's so cool that you toured with him. He seems like such a nice guy.
Super nice guy and does a ton of charity stuff and is very funny. And it was, I've mentioned on the show before, but that I've been lucky enough to do a lot of shows with like very famous comedians and sort of big shows. And Saget was the first person I performed with who I realized the majority of the audience was not there to see him do stand-up. They were there to see a famous person. Weird. And they didn't really care about the show that much. They just wanted the sort of like celebrity pointing and to yell. And because he loves doing stand, like he had notebooks and was always writing jokes, and then he'd go on stage and wouldn't get to do any of them because he does basically on stage sort of putting out fires and doing crowd control.
Oh my God, that will just
which is,
kill you.
Yeah, and you know, he sort of thrives on it and he's used to it, but it was a big eye-opener for me because I was like, oh, this crowd doesn't care that this is a stand-up show.
That's so weird.
It's very strange. Yeah, it was interesting, but you know, it was a good experience, I will say.
Yeah, just watching Dave Chappelle's most recent stand-up, like outside in that outdoor theater with everybody sort of with their masks on, 6 feet apart. It felt like, I mean, it was very different than any other stand-up he's done due to the times, but it felt like in a really beautiful way, going back to, I think maybe what stand-up started as was kind of like a town hall meeting where somebody also made people laugh, you know, like you talk about what's going on right now in a way that makes people want to listen. I don't know. It's
a weird genre. Yeah. It's not really even a genre. It's a weird format in that it is uniquely live. So like I kind of hate stand-up specials because the way I always describe them is like you're watching Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives on Food Network, that versus actually going to the restaurant and eating the food. Like being at a stand-up show is eating at the restaurant, and watching a stand-up special is watching a show about it. It's just you're missing the experience, really. And so it does sort of need that of the moment in the room, only this night sort of charm to it that, you know, it is difficult to get in the current environment for sure.
It's so interesting because I actually don't go to a lot of live stand-up shows, and I really only watch specials, but I didn't even really connect the fact that it is like a live theater art form. And so it's kind of like, I mean, seeing Hamilton was really cool on Disney Plus as a theater maker because it reminded me of my time in college and making really epic theater like that, where people are handing props and the set pieces are flying through the air, and it was the first time I had seen a musical filmed that really worked for me, you know, and of course you lose something, you know, in filming it. I just watched Amy Schumer's like 3-part documentary on the making of her
when she was pregnant.
Yeah, growing.
Yeah.
And,
see, that's brilliant to me because now you're translating the experience. So like instead of just putting 3 cameras in the theater and filming Grease, they had to translate that into a movie. And so for Schumer, instead of just showing the special, they're translating that into a documentary about the special, which gives it that extra layer that I think you need when you're not experiencing it.
And I loved getting to see behind the scenes of like how she developed her jokes, and when she talks about backing the car up to the garage or backing the garage up to the car, she's like, oh yeah, Seinfeld gave me that. And I just loved, that was one thing that really made me want to do stand-up, was that I saw how highly collaborative it was, and how, I mean, at its best, it could be like really a group and a family of a bunch of people kind of freely giving advice, giving jokes, saying, oh, you should pause there, oh, you should do this physical action there, because that's how I operate best, is in collaboration. And it seemed to me like I could never do stand-up because it seemed like you had to do it all by yourself. But I think if you're surrounded by the right people, you aren't doing it alone, and people are really helping you to carve it out. Is that your experience, or?
It's at its best it is, but it's rare. So you have a lot of incredibly damaged people who are drawn to stand up for a variety of reasons. And it is a very, you have a lot of control freaks because you're essentially a one-person show and can adjust along the way. And so people who develop that particular affliction tended to come from chaotic backgrounds. And it's a way, and also developing a sense of humor in that specific way is a defense mechanism to sort of deal with, gallows. It's a gallows humor in a lot of ways. So you have people who tend to be a little bit too introspective, a little too in their own heads. And some of those people also tend to be incredibly competitive and in a way where they don't understand that someone else's opportunity does not mean that you have something taken away from you.
I think we need to really get that as an entire world.
Yeah. And it's particularly bad in stand-up. But at the same time, you have people like, everyone, when they're creating new material, they have to go back to the same spot that everybody's at. So if you're in a band and you're the most famous band in the world, you can, rent a warehouse and write your whole album and rehearse it without a single soul ever seeing it. Whereas if you're Jerry Seinfeld and you want to get a new hour, you have to go to the crappy comedy club and work on it in front of everybody, just like somebody who's 2 years in does. So that is a weird levelator sort of for everybody. And so you do get some collaboration there in that respect. And if you have people who are usually accomplished enough and feel unthreatened enough, and they still have a funny mind, they recognize that they will think of a thing that would not work for them but would be good for someone else and will give it to them. So there's pros and cons, and it really depends on the situation and the group of people you find yourself with. But it can be, the highs are very high, but the lows are very low.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the whole setup of it of like going somewhere on your own. I don't know, when I go out to play, I used to go and do a bunch of open mics and for music, and I had my guitar, so it was like I wasn't quite alone. But, but that feels very alone.
Well, and you could also fall back on like a cover song if you needed to. Yeah. Or the thing about music, because I was in bands as well, is people watch music differently than they watch stand-up in a lot of ways. One of the ways being watching music is they have a choice to be passive or active. So you can passively watch it and enjoy it, like you're at the bar, you're talking to, trying to pick people up, you're talking to your friends and still listening to it, or you can sit and really pay attention. Whereas stand-up, you're forced to sit and pay attention. You can't passively watch it, and some people don't want to do that. And when someone's really good at stand-up, it's not an obvious skill.
Right.
If they're really good, it doesn't look like they're doing anything. Yeah. And you can't, with music, you could watch someone who you're like, wow, they have an amazing voice, or they're so great at guitar. These songs are garbage, but they're talented. Whereas with stand-up, it's people don't recognize the skill sets, so they're not like, wow, this guy's material's terrible, but his timing and cadence is great. Like they don't.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing. And I've noticed the way people go see stand-up and they see a bad show and they go, I hate stand-up. People who go see music and see a bad band don't go, man, music sucks.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I do think we need more education around the craft of stand-up and help the public to really get everything that's at play. But it's kind of cool that you have to get to a certain level of it before you really like get in there, get under the hood, start to see what makes up like timing and cadence and delivery and characters. And
a lot of that is reverse engineering too. Like like most arts, if people ask me for advice, which God help them that they have, but, I always say, one of the, just as important as practicing yourself is watching other things, whether you like them or not. And then the next step being figuring out why you like them, or even more important, sometimes why you don't like them. So if you see a stand-up you don't like, what is it you don't like? And by just that extra layer of examination, you kind of start to learn the mechanics of it and to get what works and what doesn't. And so that, to me, that stuff is very fun.
Yeah, I always find it so interesting when I'll go see a play with a friend and we were walking out of the theater and they're like, did you like it? And it's so funny because I think after you study something enough, it's like, it doesn't matter if you like it, because you can see all the elements. I'm like, well, what does that matter if I liked it? Like that's just flavor. That's just taste. As one of my acting teachers would say, there's a cake by a very cordon bleu baker, and then there's also Sara Lee pound cake. And some people just like Sara Lee pound cake, and that's just like flavor, what they're used to, what they like, it doesn't mean that one is necessarily better than the other. It's just like a matter of taste. And so I'm I'm reawakening, oh, well, what is my taste? What do I like? Because I'm like, oh, that worked, that didn't work. You just kind of go into the academic evaluation of it. Oh, I liked that. Those elements were good. I thought the storyline was a little outdated. Performances were great. Writing could have been better. So picking it apart.
There's enjoyment and liking. Like you could enjoy the craft and the work involved, but not necessarily like a thing because it's not. Oh, I don't like horror movies, but that was really well made. Or something like that. It's like it's a very different thing. But at the same time, I bet there are things that, maybe rarely, but there's maybe things you watch where you're totally lost in it and you're not looking at the technical things or the choices people make. And that's almost like a unbelievable magic trick for that to pull off.
Yeah. And I find myself asking the question more, was I moved? Or did I learn something? Or was my perspective shifted? Those are more important. Was I emotionally moved, or did I learn something or have a perspective shift? Those are kind of more interesting things for me to ask these days.
Like, did it stick with you?
Yeah. Did it really impact you? Did it really hit you? Did it really meet you?
And sometimes things we didn't like do that.
Oh, totally. And then I'm like, well, what's that about? And like, well, wow, why didn't I like that? What pissed me off about this? Like, I have a really hard time watching horror and thriller and anything that has like jump scare kind of stuff is really hard for me. And I'm just like, that feeling you get in your pit of your stomach that like something is wrong. I think I watched too much CSI as a kid, honestly, because I do remember telling my mom, I think that there really is someone in my shower trying to kill me. And she was like, what? You need to stop watching that TV show.
There's a trust question, especially with horror, and I love the connection between horror and comedy. And if people at home are listening, get out your TV guidance counselor bingo card, because I'm going to mention Stephen King's Dance Macabre. But there is a nonfiction book Stephen King wrote called Dance Macabre that's about horror fiction and how it works and the mechanics of it. But it's a book I always recommend to people who want to learn about comedy, because the mechanics and structure are exactly the same. Whoa. It's just a different playoff. And so in that respect, the sort of jump scare, the cat jumping out at you, or is the same as shock humor. It's the same as a really offensive joke. It gets a reaction, but it's at the expense of the audience's trust for the performer or the filmmaker.
Wow.
And so it's very short-sighted instead of something that will stick with you for a long time. And those things are harder to do. Like, if you build a character up, now the audience is invested in that character, and if something funny happens, it's funnier. If something scary happens, it's scarier instead of just sort of viscerally reactive. And so that sort of stuff, it's all, in my view, it's all about the trust of the person who made the thing you're watching. If you don't trust them anymore, it's not enjoyable, because you're like, what are you going to do to me here? We're not on the same ride.
Yeah.
So that stuff is interesting.
Wow, that's really interesting.
I did notice Monday night, and I know you didn't pick it, and I didn't even know this was in here. Terminator 2 Judgment Day is on USA Network.
No way! See, I didn't pick it. It didn't appeal to me.
It's just funny that of all the things, it's actually in there, which amused me.
Wow, that's really cool. No, I picked Dumb and Dumber for Monday.
Okay.
Love Dumb and Dumber. I grew up with Jim Carrey, so we watched Ace Ventura: Pet Detective like a million times. I was also very intrigued by the Comedy Central Bar Mitzvah Bash. I was like, what's this about?
That was Comedy Central's 13th anniversary of the network itself.
Wow.
Because it started in 1991. It actually started in 1990 as the Comedy Channel. And there was another rival cable network called Ha. And they joined together a year later as one network called Comedy Central. And actually originally called CTV. And then they were sued by the Canadian CTV. And so 2004, Comedy Central turned 13 years old and they threw a bar mitzvah.
Whoa. Wow.
Which was pretty funny and sort of a brilliant way to do that for the sort of traditional sort of back-patting, network celebration.
Oh, wow,
and
I love that.
It's a very fun special. Also, a show I don't enjoy, but 2.5 Men is on, and I forgot there was a show on at the same time on a different network called Half and Half.
What is that?
So it was another sitcom, and it was only on one season, but I just imagine in 2004 there were a lot of people who were very confused in that half hour.
Interesting. Half and half. Okay. I also had Sister for Monday, which I loved. Tia and Tamara Mowry, and I actually met Tamara Mowry here in LA. She came.
She's the one who has the cooking show now?
I actually don't know what is going on with them now, but I should check it out, see what's going on. I worked at a hot yoga studio in college in Santa Monica, and she came in one day, and I looked up, and I was like, oh my God. I honestly don't run into that many like high profile celebrities, but I did run into her, and she was like there to get her sweat on and her zen on. It was beautiful, beautiful thing.
Are you sure it was her and not her sister?
I actually took her credit card, so that's how I knew which one it was.
Do you still have it?
I'm like, oh my God, can I just keep this? She'd be like, no, you weirdo, give it back. I liked a good little Who's line too, so I put that down on Monday, even though I haven't watched that in forever. But I was always very intrigued by improv, which is probably what led me to do Groundlings. And
Whose Line was the first place most of America saw improv.
Yeah. I think that's like where I saw it. And then I would do little skits with my brothers and with my friends. And but it's funny because I never had improv as a class or as even an arts activity in middle school or high school or anything. I didn't do improv until I went to the Groundlings after I graduated from UCLA.
Well, it's kind of everything you're not supposed to do as an actor, right?
Whoa, in what sense?
I mean, it's, there's sort of the two camps of things, but you have the writers and directors who are like, these are the words, this is the thing, you do them, and you have some leeway in maybe the choices you make, but you're still there to bring that thing to life. Whereas improv is the exact opposite in that you're not there to showcase someone else's words or ideas and to bring them to life. You're sort of changing and moving the thing as it goes along. So the two things don't always mix very well together.
Yeah. I personally, I love, it's so funny actually that I'm saying this because I remember leaving Groundlings and being like, oh, I don't want to perform improv. Like I still had those actor bones that was like, I want a script, But then it's funny the way we did therapy with Pammy is that we beated it out and we kind of had little thoughts about things and knew generally where it was going, but then the performance of it was improv. So it's just funny that I was like, oh, I don't want to perform improv. And then here I am making a bunch of short little webisodes that are all improv based. But I loved doing improv because I really got that everything's improv, like conversations are improv. Like I didn't really get that. It actually helped my songwriting a lot. I think it helps writing a lot, kind of getting getting really a knack for story and what's going to move stuff along and introducing new places and things and events. But one of my mentors, who's like a hardcore actor's actor and actor's teacher, she always says that sometimes improv can make you go to choose the most sort of like not like boring emotional choice, but like your first knee-jerk emotional choice. And so it's like more broad strokes of...
And the second one's probably the best one to do.
Yeah, like maybe the second or third, But it is really interesting. That's why safe space around improv is like very, very important. And I'm glad that all these improv companies are really looking at their protocol and their education, because when you start opening your mouth without really thinking about it, it's very weird. Like I've been very surprised by things that I've said in improv classes, and I'm just like, where did that come from? Like,
oh yeah, you learn about yourself.
It's very weird, and like how scenes will just start going in a direction, and you're like, oh no, and you can't stop it, and you're like still trying to make people laugh, so you go for like base level comedy, and then you realize like, I need more skills.
But again, that's why that sort of improv almost should exclusively exist in a live format where it's done and out in the ether and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Whereas the sort of hybrid that works really well with stuff like Curb Your Enthusiasm and the Christopher Guest stuff, those are very highly outlined and beat it out. So it's sort of a hybrid of both those things. It's not completely improvised. But
you know who you are, you know where you're going, you know what's happening in the scene, and then go, I actually think that's like my new love language. I'm kind of obsessed.
I mean, but that is great if you know where you need to get to, but you have autonomy in getting there. That is very fun, and that can bring out some really great stuff. But like I always used to think people like Marlon Brando were incredibly pretentious, and now I've come to learn, he's just sort of crazy and was begging someone to tell him no at some point, and no one ever did. But I was,
So
he famously would not learn his lines and would have them written on cue cards or, all different places around the set. And I was always like, okay, Mr. Lazy, you're getting paid a ton and you just like made up some actor BS so that you didn't have to learn your lines. But as I've gotten older and I've seen it, weirdly, I was watching a little making of the movie Superman and with Marlon Brando, and he has his lines written around the set and he explains why. And I was still a little bit eye rolling, but he basically said, you don't have conversations where you know everything you're going to say and the mindset you're in and what's going on around you, but the words are almost just as much a surprise to you as they are to everyone else. So that's why I like to see the word, have cue cards and that sort of thing. And watching him do the takes like that, I was like, I actually don't think it's total bullshit. Yeah. Like he does seem to have something there and he is nailing this stuff in like one or two takes that way and getting a good performance. So maybe it's not just, I don't feel like learning my lines. So I think it depends on the environment of the thing that you're making maybe. But who knows?
I also had an opportunity to work with Anthony Hopkins last year and he's like the other sort of end of that. And in the way he learns his lines is like, he just says them so many times and repeats them so many times until it's like so deeply in his consciousness that they just float out of his head. Like they just, right. And so, and one takes a lot more prep work than the other, but I don't know, they're both of their ways in performance of like that spontaneity and that ease is just incredible to me. And it's just funny that you can get it a couple of different ways. It's like, hey. Yeah,
they accomplish the same thing ultimately in that you're not thinking about the words.
Yeah, totally. Because normally you're not thinking about the words.
Right, exactly. But man, there's a lot of movies on that Monday night too. I don't know. There's a really bad movie called Dinosaur Island that I may have been watched because it's just terrible in the best way. The Real World was on. There's some good stuff. Tuesday, what'd you do?
Okay, so Tuesday, honestly, I put Friends first. When you asked me about like a theme song for a show, like that was the one that stuck out to me the most because it comes on and you just start singing along with it. And my dentist has Netflix in their office, and so whenever I go, I get to watch Friends on their screen that's like 1 inch above my face. So that's nice. And then I've never seen Frasier.
Oh wow!
One of my clients is is a psychoanalyst, and and I'm really interested in psychology. And she was telling me I had to watch it, and so I put that on my list.
Oh, I'd be curious what you think. Did you ever watch Cheers?
I never watched Cheers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Wait, Frasier is a psychoanalyst or a therapist, right?
Correct, but it's a spin-off of Cheers. So he's playing the same character that he played on Cheers.
Dude, spin-offs, man. If I could get a spin-off, I would really make it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like someone like Kelsey Grammer who had 10 years on Cheers and then another 10 years on Frasier. Like, that's a pretty sweet gig.
My God, now you're talking. I don't even know if they do stuff like that anymore. And then...
Very rare. It's very rare for that sort of thing.
Really rare. But it's like less than 1% of actors do that. And deemed that's the way you're successful, as if you're on a show for a long time.
Right.
Then I thought it was so interesting. There was the original version of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy on here.
Mm-hmm. The Bravo one. Yep.
Yeah. And I kind of would be curious. I never watched that version. I'm only watching the version now. And I'd be curious to go back and see what it was like.
It's a little more... It's a little less emotional. Okay. It's much more utilitarian and superficial. which I don't mean in a disparaging way, but that's just like, it's a makeover show.
Right. It's just like,
And
wear
it's
these
not
pants, trust us. Like,
Right. It's more like what not to wear. It's not so much like what drove you to this, and let's help fix these things
like
in your
real
life and make you
deep
feel
dive.
better.
You know, I have to say the first season that I watched of Queer Eye with the new Fab Five, I was crying every episode. It was like,
Oh yeah, you're human.
oh my God, I'm human. But it honestly, and I think that's what got me back really into makeover shows for the first time ever in my life, was Queer Eye, because I was like, wait, this is so cathartic and amazing and feel good. I love this.
Yeah, because we have 20 years of reality TV and makeover shows now that have taught us that it's not just about the makeover. And so they very smartly were able to sort of incorporate that which is why it's a great show. There's also a really weird thing on Tuesday night that immediately I was drawn to, and it's called The Natural History of the Chicken.
Oh, that's...
a rye survey of all things chicken.
Oh.
Follows happy free-range chicken. I'm like, what?
What are you watching? I have one later on that I was like, what is this? It's called Full Frontal Fashion on Wednesday. I was like, what is this?
I'm unfamiliar. What time was that on?
Let me look.
Let me see. Let's see if I can find it here.
Dude, this is so fun reading these old TV guides. So how do you have all these?
I used to pay for my own subscription when I was a kid.
Oh my God.
And so a lot of ones from the 80s and 90s are mine. And then people have sent them to me, and I've bought a couple collections. There was 2 libraries that were getting rid of all their printed materials. So I just took all their TV guides.
Amazing. And hence this podcast was born.
Exactly. Full frontal fashion. Yeah, there's like American Idol. There's stuff I didn't watch.
It's like 9, or it's at 10 p.m. on the last page of Wednesday prime time.
Okay,
it's on
where are we?
WE.
Oh, that was Women's Entertainment.
Oh my
Yes.
God. So is this like a porn channel, or what is that?
No, it wasn't even that exciting. I wish. It was more like someone was like, Lifetime's a little bit too butch. Let's have a real women's entertainment channel. And it was a very short-lived, I think it was replaced by I think Oprah bought and turned it into the Oprah network, but it was this weird, just women's entertainment is what they called it. I don't know how accurate it was.
There was also at 8 p.m., if you wanted to tune in, there was Blow Dry, 2 stars. Comic look at a hairdressing competition taking place in a small English town.
Yes, and this stars, what the hell's his name? He always had the bedhead. He was like one of
Alan Rickman.
not Alan Rickman, the American in it. He was like a heartthrob type guy.
Oh, Josh Hartnett.
Josh Hartnett.
Yeah.
Josh Hartnett, yes.
Oh.
And he's playing a Scottish person, I think, in it. It's a real weird movie.
Horrific.
Yeah, he doesn't do the accent real
Fun
well.
ones in here, like Wind Tunnel. I don't know what that is.
That I'm unaware of. Wow.
Wind Tunnel. On the soap channel. Oh, I did used to watch soaps. I watched Young and the Restless religiously with my mom, and my whole family really got into it. It was like one summer. I guess my mom used to watch it while we were at school, and then we went home for summer and we started watching it with her, and I just got so into it. And true Hollywood story, the guy Michael Graziadei, who's a fantastic actor, that was his big break on Young and the Restless. He played Cassie's boyfriend who got in a car accident. Cassie died. I went to shoot a episode of a television show that has not aired yet, so I can't talk about it. But I looked over in the dressing. I knew I had a boyfriend in the show, and I look over, I'm in the hair and makeup trailer, and it's frickin' Michael Graziadei is my boyfriend in this show. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I know that guy. I don't know why I didn't think to look at the call sheet and look at who I was going to be with that day. It was insane. I texted my mom immediately. I was like, you're not going to believe who my boyfriend is. And he was just the sweetest, so nice. We're friends now. We chat on Instagram, and we were sharing recipes recipes, and he was showing me pictures of his girlfriend and his dogs, and just really had like such a great day with him. He's such a gem. And then another weird Young and the Restless connection is that Cameron Grimes, who played Cassie, his girlfriend, Pam Grimes is her mother, who started the talent agency Hervey Grimes talent agency. My first agent was Marcia Hervey. And so I have like this whole Young and the Restless train that brought me to my now agent, Julie Smith, and you know, on set with Michael. It's been quite a journey.
It's a weird small world, and it's so strange, this sort of cyclical full circle thing where, you know, something you watched that probably felt unattainable and foreign and a million miles away from your real life then becomes this thing that's like your gig. So
weird. Like really, truly so magical and mystical, but it makes sense kind of in a strange way. And then, you know what I still haven't seen on Tuesday night? I would have closed out the night with Thelma and Louise. I still haven't seen that.
That is a great movie.
I need to
really
see
is.
that, right?
Yeah, I would say you should see that. That's a must see.
I can't believe I haven't seen that. It's like embarrassing.
I'd also be really curious what you think of that, like just watching that sort of removed from the phenomena. Like how like in a vacuum of that. I haven't watched that in years. Maybe I should rewatch it myself.
Yeah.
That's kind of fascinating. So Wednesday, obviously, you watched Full Frontal Fashion.
Full Fashion on the Women's Entertainment Network. Me and my brothers also got really into the Bourne series. And so...
Those are great.
Matt Damon, are you kidding me? Like, forget about it. So we got really into that. So I would have watched Bourne Identity, and I had also Seinfeld down for Wednesday. I'll watch Seinfeld anytime it's on. And my boyfriend also loves Seinfeld. We watch Seinfeld all the time. We love it.
That does fall into that Friends category. I think those shows have sort of become, for millennials, it's sort of become what the Brady Bunch was to Generation X.
Yeah. And, like, that was always the kind of show I wanted to be on. Like... I wanted to be on like a funny sitcom with like a little group of people. And now it's evolved a little bit. But hey, if I got to be on a sitcom, I would like do it in a second.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a good bridge for theater actors who go into film and TV. Just because you have a live studio audience and the rehearsal of it all makes sense to me. I like that. It's an unique
format in that it isn't quite theater and it's not quite film. It's its own thing, and it's a lot of hard work, but I think that people, especially people who are used to the theater, do like the fact that you kind of, it's not exactly a 9-to-5 job, but you like go in every day and rehearse and then get it done on the Friday and then you're done, and it's like a very linear kind of thing, whereas shooting film is the exact opposite.
Like, we're going to shoot the last scene of the movie today, right now, first thing, and then we'll go back to when you just meet for the first time. It's like you don't know what that's so hard to shoot a thing like that out of order, whereas which is more the norm. And so doing a multicam show, it must be sort of refreshing to be like, wow, I'm going along like normal life. I think that my whole system would love that. I really am like a little school teacher where like Monday through Friday, I'm like, what's my assignment? Like, I would love that. It's always so hard for me when I go to set. A couple movies I've done now, I'm like, I get to set, I meet the guy that plays my boyfriend, and then the first thing we're shooting is like a makeout scene. I'm like, really? We can't have dinner first? Like, but that's not how it works. I'm like, wow, okay, fine. Yeah, I mean, that's where the acting really comes in, where you have to like invent this whole relationship to be at that point without having actually done anything. I know, and that's why I'm really glad that they're bringing in intimacy coordinators now, so you can like decide a little bit, like a fight scene, like choreograph it out, like decide, like, oh, like, how is this between you guys? Is it playful? Is it like really disconnected? And like make those choices, because it can be hard to do that on your own, especially on a film set. I still quite haven't figured it out. It's like everybody kind of comes with their own homework done, and then all of a sudden they're like, go. At least when I'm day playing and stuff, which is fine. But it's like, like I said, I really thrive in collaboration. So I want to kind of be like, well, what do we want to do here?
Right.
Let's just make some choices together.
It's a very disconnected way to have to do an incredibly dependent on other people job.
I know. It's so funny. I'm really building up my strength and my stamina for it.
Yeah,
It's also
that's all you can
fun,
really do.
It's kind of like a universal language is what I'm learning. Is like you show up and it's just kind of like, oh, this is what we do. Like we meet somebody for 1 second and then we've been married for 20 years.
Right.
And this is, and just, I like to just tell myself, like, just go in, like, just go right into it.
And then you never talk to them again.
Yeah. And then just like, bye, good luck with your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And you might run into them at the dry cleaner sometime. It's a very weird thing.
That's why I had to get so much training. Cause if I went in with like a method thing, it got because that was my first sort of understanding was just the method. And I had a very strong imagination. And so I would go in and I would kind of get lost, honestly. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to be safe for me long term. And I remember shooting one of my first little indie films. I had this guy that we had like great chemistry and we were in this scene together. I think that was one shoot where I showed up and we had our makeout scene like first thing. And
right.
And like I was just like, oh my God, like this guy like is in love with me. Like I was like, wow. And like we had such great chemistry. And after you do stuff where you don't have chemistry with people and you have to really work for it, it's so nice when you meet somebody that you do have chemistry with. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, like this guy just like really likes me. Like maybe this is going somewhere. I was single at the time. And then at the end of the day, he's like, oh yeah, well my wife and this and that. I was like, what?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, an unnatural.
Yeah, you take off your costume and then you have to like have a life to go home to.
Yeah, a temp job where you have to make out with people. Is kind of a weird thing.
I'm here for it. I'm here for
it. But that's not easy.
No, totally.
Where were we? Friday? Did we hit Friday? Or on Thursday?
Okay, what was this called? Poison Ivy. Did you see this?
Oh yes, Poison Ivy. This was Drew Barrymore's comeback.
This looked very interesting. I would like to watch this to see exactly how problematic it is right now.
So it's very much in the vein of Fatal Attraction, sort of like conniving evil woman uses sex to manipulate a man and ruin his life kind of thing. But Drew Barrymore was a child actor and was seen as a child actor until this movie. This was her sort of reinvention as an adult. And it's funny because she, after this sort of, femme fatale vixen thing for this role, she then sort of fell into her adult persona of kind of a goofy, nice person.
Oh my God, I love Drew Barrymore. She's such a special
But needed this to sort of get the attention again, or weirdly to sort of be taken seriously, because it's a silly movie. It's directed by a woman, which is interesting. And it's not a great movie. And it as far as the sort of erotic thrillers of the 90s go, which is a really terrible genre, it's one of the better ones. But it's sort of, if you've ever seen The Crush with Alicia Silverstone.
Oh, I don't think I have.
It's sort of in that genre. It's not great. But if you're a Drew Barrymore fan, it's an interesting sort of historical note in her career.
Wow. Sweet little
And then
Drew.
Poison Ivy 2 starred Alyssa Milano.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It became this sort of direct-to-video series where child actresses reinvented themselves as adults.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. It's like, well, we have sex now, so we're adults.
Right. I've been through puberty.
So after I watched Drew Barrymore's comeback, I decided to watch Landscaper's Challenge on the Home and Garden Network. I'm really into the work in my little backyard here. So I'd like to see what the Landscaper's Challenge is.
Yeah, I like that it makes it sound much more like some sort of like strongman games or like, yeah, not just like who made the best one. It's like, oh, who can dig holes the fastest.
You will have 12 wheelbarrows full of stones that you need to move from point A to point B. Are you ready?
Yeah, that I would watch. And I think that actually is a show on now. Like one of the networks this summer has a show that's like the Blue Collar Games. And it's literally like people jackhammering or like how many bricks can you the more things change, the more they stay the same.
You need that.
Friday night, final night of the week.
Friday night. We have, I love Joan of Arcadia.
Yeah, this was such a short-lived show that really was a good quality show. And I think the first thing everyone kind of saw Amber Tamblyn on.
Yeah, and I freaking love Amber Tamblyn. And I actually saw her. She's gotten really into poetry. And one of my good friends took me to, they used to do this amazing poetry comedy music night called The Drums Inside Your Chest with Buddy Wakefield, this other poet. And we went and she was there, and it was just like such a nourishing LA night of people doing like really, really, really beautiful music and poetry and art. And so I'm a huge fan of hers, and that was my first thing that I saw of hers. And I was also raised Catholic and talked to God a lot, and I loved the idea that like God could be anywhere, you know, like he's the guy on the street corner asking for change, and like how do you treat that guy? You know, I loved kind of like shows that had a moral sort of lesson. And then I don't know what I selected here, Going for Broke. I don't know what that is.
So Going for Broke, which let me see, sounds familiar. It's on at 9:00. Also, Deadwood premiered that night, which is kind of interesting. There's the first episode of that. Where is Going for Broke? I don't even see it. I don't know. Where is it? Grounded for Life, which was like kind of an okay sitcom. I think it's Donal Logue, wasn't that one?
Animals, remember that?
I will watch that anytime it's on. I mean,
so cute.
Yeah, that is a go-to. I will watch.
I also saw Revenge of the Celebrity Assistants, which sounds like something that could fit in the world of Therapy with Pammy, which I would check that out for research purposes. Also, Punked. Ashton Kutcher was so cute. And then we have another music movie, Showgirls, the dreams of like Las Vegas performers.
Do you consider that a music movie though?
Is it like a stripper movie? Is that what it is?
Oh, you've never seen Showgirls?
No, I haven't.
Oh, wow. So that was sort of the pinnacle of the Joe Esterhaus era of Hollywood. So he wrote the script for Basic Instinct, and it's sort of this like really insane, overly sexualized, bizarre, campy, not on purpose sort of movie. And that movie was Elizabeth Berkley from Saved by the Bell. That was her reinventing herself as an adult by doing a new movie.
Weird that all these child stars do like a super sexy role to be taken seriously. Like, wow. And like Miley did it, you know, with her wrecking ball and all of that.
It was kind of the only way to do it, sadly. No, for women only, I will say. Men did not have to do that, which is kind of hilarious because I would like to see like former male child actors have to do their reinvention sexy role, which would be...
Well, I mean, I guess Ryan Gosling kind of did it with...
Yeah, I suppose, but they usually end up playing like a cop. So you have like Mark Paul Gosselaar on, you know, NYPD Blue or something like that, or Ricky Schroeder.
The gendered ways of growing up.
Yeah, like you have to take your top off. They just have to have a gun. Like those are the ways they could do it. Yeah, that's how we recognize them as a viable adult in this in the world of media.
Wow, and this is only 2004. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much has changed, but some things have. I do want to mention on that Friday night, the Chris Isaak show was on, which was a really funny, weird sort of meta sitcom on Showtime that Chris Isaak starred in, and it is impossible to see now. It's not streaming anywhere, it never came out on DVD. It was a really sort of funny, weird show about a band.
Weird. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed that show. I'd like to revisit it and see if I...
I'm also seeing Child Star Babylon on VH1.
which sounds horribly depressing.
What is going on?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been fascinated by child stars, and sort of every new millennium, you sort of look back at the ones from the previous ones. So there was definitely a lot of revisiting of like kids that were on 90s shows. Yeah, exactly. And the sort of dark underbelly of that sort of thing we really started to get that E! True Hollywood Story culture around 2004. Is there anything that you are watching now or that is like your go-to recommended quarantine show?
Okay, so at the beginning of quarantine, I watched from start to finish for the first time ever Gossip Girl.
Okay.
And it was really a very delightful thing to watch for the first 2 months of quarantine. It was like ice cream for my brain. And so that's where I started. And then we watched Ozark, which was fantastic. And
again, a reinvented child star, Jason Bateman.
As a drug trafficker.
That's
and a
right.
money launderer. Fantastic. I love Insecure, and I've watched every season of it. If you aren't watching Insecure, go get HBO and watch it. It's just fantastic. In fact, I think the penultimate episode, there's a scene between Molly and Issa, and it's like the first time I've seen a female friendship argument that I really related to.
Oh, interesting.
It was like them talking about their friendship, and like, you know, in any friendship, like you rub up against people, like flaws come out, people aren't there for you when you need them, like stuff happens. And I think that there's this undertone in our culture of friendship of just like, oh, people who are there to have fun with, you know, and I do like love that about my friendships, but I also love to have a depth in my relationships, and especially with certain girlfriends, like really having like a growth connection of like, hey, what you did like really bugged me, and like bringing it to the surface and talking about it. And it was just a really beautiful scene where Molly and Issa had been like trying really hard to get like Molly to like get their friendship back on track, and Molly was kind of playing hard to get like with a girlfriend, which I just thought that was like so interesting. And I see that and we do that, and Issa's like, I just can't be the only one putting stuff into this, and like it has to be a two-way street. And I just loved that. I haven't seen a scene like that in a while. And it wasn't about guys. It wasn't about, you know, you stole my boyfriend. It was just like pure friendship growth, like friendship partnership through life. And the ways that they're rapidly changing and advancing in their careers. So I'm a huge fan of Insecure. I would say go watch that.
All right. Good tip. And I will check that out. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It's been great chatting with you finally.
Thank you for having me. I know we chatted for a long time. I really appreciate you taking the time and having me on. This was so fun. And I read my first TV guide.
I'm glad that you did it on the show.
Your fan base is probably going to be shaking their head like, oh
no. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of people that it's their first time looking at one, and it's always kind of an interesting angle to see what they think looking as an adult.
Thanks for keeping this alive. I love it.
There you go. That's Kaitlin. I will put up a link to all her stuff, all her music and performance stuff. And if you haven't already watched Therapy with Pammy after listening to the Stephanie Erb episode, you should listen to it now or watch it. I mean, you can listen to it too. It's probably still funny, but it's extra funny as a visual presentation. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. As I said before, it is required of me to do the show that you in fact listen. Thank you guys also for the patreon.com/TV Guidance Counselor for contributing at all. That still blows me away, especially now that my TeePublic store has been shut down and confiscated for undisclosed reasons. Thanks a lot, TeePublic. Would have happily pulled down whatever designs you didn't like, but instead they just deleted everything. But that's how my year's going. That is how my year is going. You know, but it's not about me. Everyone's year is miserable. If you run into anyone who's like 2020, man, it's my year. What a boon for me. That person is crazy, and you should help them seek clinical medical attention for the mental illness that they have. Speaking of mental illness, I'll be here next week. Hope you will be too, for a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
You don't think Scarface is a classic? Was that your...
I mean, yeah, you could pick up on that just by my nailing.